you say 3, 2, 1, Lego, and then you're going to reach in and touch the robot. There's a whole section in the rules about how to start a robot, what has to be in base, what are the conditions of a start, what's allowed, what's not allowed. So that's all how that applies here. Everything needs to be completely in base. Completely in base means nothing outside this black line. As a tip, the technical definition of base is the outside of the black line. I always teach my teams to use the inside, the white line. One, that gives them about a 1/4 inch of cushion. And two, it's actually much easier to see if something's in the white area than something's in the black area. So technically it's this line, but I always use this line. And then it's wherever your walls are onto the back. But when you start the mission, everything has to be completely in base and completely motionless. So I'm ready to go. I've got my robot set, I've got it on the right program, and I press go. Now I'm going to use my pretend hand to move the robot. So this is what happened. I'm going to go out here a little bit of ways, and I'm going to stop. I'm going to flip this motor down to activate the bar as defined in the missions. The robot's going to pretend to move forward a little bit, and it's going to simply move back. No applause, no nothing. That was a mission. and it's that amount of celebration and accomplishment that you need to inject in that team in that first meeting when they're like, we don't know what to do. As soon as they get a robot that will at least roll, and if they can at least download one program too, that's probably 1, 2, 3 blocks. Okay, so 3 move blocks, and they just accomplished whatever this is, 20 points, 15 points, whatever the case could be. And that will boost them and give them the confidence to go tackle the rest of this. Okay? It does get harder after that, but that gives you an example of, as a coach how to kickstart these things, right? And again, we've already talked about probably about 6 or 7 major rules: start and restart, what's in, what's touching, allowable objects on the robot, programming, and all that type of stuff. Make sense? Now, Lisa was talking about gamed missions and whatnot. A lot of times you want to kind of combine some of these missions. If you had a perfect team and you broke your team up in all the right job descriptions and you saw that mission and they all worked perfectly, it wouldn't matter, because when you get to the table of competitions and you have only 2.5 minutes, that's not enough time to run that. And then that's individuals. So eventually, if you do have a team that's being successful at creating lots of solutions, you're going to have to start combining them so that you do it. But one of the other things I'm going to do for the sake of an example point and from what something might be for a rookie team is we know that these loops, I've got one loop here in base, and if I get it onto the project scale, which is also, again, somewhat close to home, I don't have to travel far to get there, and as soon as the door's out of the way, it's in a relatively straight line. Again, we don't have the wall here, so that's not exactly perfect. So I can deliver this loop somehow and hang it out there. But rather than just doing the one loop, I also know there's one kind of close by loop all by itself. Now there are other loops which are a little bit more complicated to retrieve, but I'm after that little green. And one of the things that I'm going to do, when the robot comes back into base from its first mission, as soon as it's in base, and in base means any little part of base. As soon as it's in base, any discernible part, it's in base. And in base means that now I can touch it, grab it, make it an offline robot without any penalty. If for whatever reason it was out here and it got stuck, and it's not going to do anything, and I have to go out there and touch it, as soon as I touch it, it's an offline robot, which means it has to come back to base. But I've incurred one of these touch penalties. All right? But as long as it comes back into base on its own, as soon as it's in base, and you've got kids that are sitting just like this, and the kid that may be on this side is looking down this line, and as soon as it breaks the line, he goes in. The other kid grabs it. All right? One of the reasons to vocalize that word in is it does a couple of things. One is if that particular kid is the one that's going to grab it, vocalizing the word makes him slow down just enough. The other thing is communication. You've got 2 children who are working here, and the other person might need to know what it is. And then the other person is the rep. Oftentimes the rep would stand probably right here. And for them to hear it, so they now verbally see and believe that you know that the
well, it's time back. Are maybe trying to get to hurry or something?
Yeah, you're trying to beat that 2.5 minute clock.
Oh, I didn't.
And you're absolutely right. You don't want to grab it 1 microsecond too soon and incur this penalty and perhaps other penalties just to save that little microsecond. Let it get in base, right? So it's in base. I've grabbed the robot. Now the robot is offline, and I can do stuff to it. I can add stuff to the robot. I can take stuff off the robot. I can give it some cargo. I can take cargo off. I've got 20 fingers to manipulate the robot. So I've decided, my pretend team, is I'm going to add some guide wheels to the robot. These particular wheels are nice because they just kind of slip in there. So it's very fast. I'm not going to rebuild the robot. You don't have time to use all those little black pins. You just slip in some wheels. And the reason I'm going to use these wheels is because I'm going to set my robot like this. Again, we have our pretend wall here, right? Because I'm going after that green loop. And these wheels along the wall will help me drive a nice straight line down to the green loop.
Is there a wall all the way around?
Yes, full perimeter. So the typical Houston tournaments and areas all have 2x4s, which is a 3.5-inch style wall. The rules will indicate that there's a variability there. So if you buy 2x3s, you go to 3x1, you can have a shorter wall. For the most part, that I've seen in Houston area, everybody has a 2x4. You go to Home Depot, you're going to do a 2x4. And I'm going to use that to my advantage. I'm going to use that wall to kind of help steer, keep me straight there. We talked a little bit, this just gets away from the table a little bit, we talked about the evolution of your robots and your teams. We talked about if you were in this group, we talked about, if we were going to pick up that loop, you told the team, they would pick it up like this with their finger and try to bring it back to base. They'll try to eventually evolve from, well, at least we can stab it, right? So they may add a long skinny stick out here to the beginning to do this thing. But if you notice, it's kind of a small target. You've got to get that little bit of a circle with one skinny stick. So some teams will then go to, I'll look at my bag of tricks here. Go to a rake type of option. By the way, this would be a method by which the team should not organize because you don't want them spending time flipping things. As Lisa said, when the team asks for the scalpel, that scalpel should be in the exact same spot, in their organized tray each and every time. Now some teams might develop something like this because, okay, a fork is a bit better than a spear. So I'm going to run down there, and this gives me more chance to pick up that loop. And notice these are movable, so that if it gets stuck on something, it won't. But you get all of that, and you say, well, hey, why do I even need to pick up the loop at all? The objective is just to get the loop back to base. So don't let the kids read too much into it. Don't let them get too involved into mechanizing, making this. You ever watch the machine, what's the show? How it's made on these scripts here, where they have all the conveyor belts that make ice cream and all these men. It doesn't need to be that. What we're going to do is just simply add a big old bulldozer type thing to the end of this thing, run it down the wall, and if you will, put it down, and then put the darn robot in reverse. And just drag the thing down. Now, I may have made my attachment too wide here, because I hung up on that position. But you get the concept. Awesome point. Oh, love it. Real world examples. In that particular case, I actually did this mission, which is there's a rule in there about destruction or accidental destruction. This particular model, you have destructed this model where it's no longer functioning, but you would not be penalized with the current one that you're on. If for some reason, and very unlikely, the destruction of this model made this mission work, then those would count as scores. But in this case, this was just an accidental model. But if you break the model off of its pieces, or if you pull it off and you dual lock Velcro, then that particular mission is going to be considered destroyed. So I drug my...
Can I ask you a silly question? In reality, this is going to be done without you pushing it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is just my magic finger. So that was the robot.
Make sure. Okay.
When you get ready to start your robot, again, everything that's the robot, anything that the robot is touching, and everything has to be completely in base and motionless.
So you're using a remote control?
No, it's going to be programmed. So you're going to use the computer back at your house to give this robot instructions with the programming language. So, for example, in this particular one, it's another simple mission. You've got one forward move block, you've got a down to scoop move, and one reverse block, another 3-block mission.
So how do they practice? Do they get this kit? We will have this set up so they can practice it?
Well, absolutely.
It comes with the kit?
So once you register a team with FLL, the national part of registration, when you're registering a team, which I believe is the 225, the other thing that you'll do is you'll order the field setup kit, which is another $75. This is the field setup.
And that allows you to practice.
All of these pieces and this mat come with the field setup. Now you will have to provide your own table. So a surface like this one, or the FLL tables with the walls.
And you decide which mission you want to do.
Good point. I didn't even bring that up at the beginning, but we got going there. I'm still watching the clock, but the choice to pick this mission, or that mission, or that mission, then this mission, or those two, and these three, and that four, Completely up to you. There is no prescribed order to the missions, right? They are just options on the menu. It's the Big Mac menu of the world. So the order and the sequence you want to do. The other piece is you can try them as many times as you want. Let's say that when our door mission here, it didn't quite work the first time because maybe I had the robot too far to the left. As long as the mission is still intact, bring the robot back in 10 days and scoot it over with it, and you can retry the mission. So there's no prescribed order whatsoever. That's completely up to user imagination.
Is there a penalty for doing this?
Nope. The only rule you cannot tell you there is once the robot is outside of base and it gets stuck or is whatever, and you touch it. And when you touch it, you'll lose one of these penalty markers, and you do have to bring it back to base. There are 2 other penalties called the sprawl and jump. Garrett, we won't necessarily go into those. You can read about what that means and you get some examples and opportunities.
Can you do 2 missions? Do you always have to come back to base before you can do the mission? Can you do 2?
Absolutely, you can do this. You can press go once and have it do all the missions if your team is that smart. No limit whatsoever to how many times you should or shouldn't come back to base. So most teams will probably do about four departures from base. So how many different things they do in those 4 trips, it's kind of depending on the level of the advancement of the team. And that's mostly based on time. You don't have time to do it.
When it comes back to base, are you flipping through different programs, or you just need pause and then?
Most teams will flip to a new program. So you may have program 1, called door. You may have program 2 called hoop. And you may have program 3 called scale. And you would scroll through the different ones as the operator. And that's the operator's job, right? And that's why there's 2 people, right? You may have one that is lining up the robot, one that is putting on or taking off attachments, one that is putting on or taking off cargo, because this is now cargo, and one that is in charge of getting ready to turn everything on.
Cargo means you can use that to solve your mission.
Right. Cargo is any piece of the table that now the robot is in charge of either delivering, retrieving, somehow in contact with. So at this point, this is going to become cargo. And the reason we use that word is because cargo has some different meanings to it, and I'll show you that. So our last example is I brought this loop back. I was already given 1 loop at base, so I've got these 2 loops. And I don't have any fancy attachment made, so I'm just going to kind of pretend to get here. So now my mission is, and I'm going to assume the door's open, and I'm going to run my mission number 3, and let's go. And again, in a pretend fashion, I'm going to go out here, and in a way, that's going to get on there.
Oh yeah.
I'll pretend, and then the robot's going to come back into this.
So this is not a wall here.
All right, good point. So regardless of what's drawn on the wall, there's in the very beginning, there's talking about intention. This, as adults, we infer meaning in all of this. Meaning that that's a line, that's a wall, that's a river, that's a robot. It doesn't. There is no inferred intention. If the rules don't say you can't do it, then you can't. So most of the lines that you see on here are for navigational purposes. So if you had a light sensor pointing out here, you would be able to tell, I'll just reach the black line or the green line, or I can follow that line. But like, for example, a good example that they always use is last year it had some rivers and buildings painted on the map for decoration. People thought you might have to go around the river. No, it's just decoration. Unless there's a rule that says you are only allowed to get to the basket mission by going around X. Then that's the case. And here's the one example we have this year is the soccer ball deal. You're supposed to shoot this ball and hopefully make it into the net. But when you take that shot and you propel the ball towards the net with your robot, the robot has to be on the other side of the thin black line. So you have the right there, see that little trapezoid shape? You need to be in that area, that zone, before you make your shot. So you couldn't come around right here and it's kind of dig it in. You've got to be over in that area when you project your ball.
And that's not what it's doing. It just has to be in the base, right? So they can move it anywhere start.
Right. A start just has to be, it doesn't have to be completely in, so you can't have any points poking out. But it can be over here, 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 and you can often teams will want to do a consistent start. So these robots are going to go forward 22 centimeters and turn such and such. Well, keep doing that. If you start that robot here and it does that, that's completely different than if you started it here. So you want to teach your teams to always make it nice and straight. And we use these marks on the mat. You also see these marks along here. But this Lego one's a nice one. It's a nice big bright line that you can say, okay, that's where I'm starting. I'm starting it this way. I mean, I use the bottom of the word automation. Use those things.
So are you allowed to use like a ruler to calibrate against the wall?
No. But you can use Legos. So anything that you can make out of Lego, we call these an aiming jig or an alignment jig. So let's say I was going to do an angle run out that way, and there's obviously no markings to that. Anything that I can build out of Lego parts, I can build and have all of this stuck together. And this would be one whole unit that I would drop down as a team, and it would have that angle for me that I could use. The only restriction to that is, again, when I get ready to press the button to go start, I can't be holding this with my fingers. The only thing my finger can do is to activate the remote. So you can't have a.
Actually pull it out.
Yeah, you can't have one kid hold that alignment jig while the other kid starts. Everything has to go in base, and then you start.
Once the robot is out, can you touch anything with it?
Yes. So once the robot is off, all of this stuff is loose material, including items that you might have.
You can set up the next mission.
Absolutely. So anytime your robot is out, that's your time to prepare for what's coming next. Again, that 2.5 minute clock is going to come at you. And even if you have a solution, if you can't get your robot to transition from X to Y, then you're still going to be running at the same time. So absolutely, when the robot's out there, that's the time for the kids to be shuffling and going. And especially younger kids and newer kids love to watch the movie.
Well, you want to see how they're going to transition.
So you're in the stands as a coach, and you've got this hole already started in your tongue because you've been biting the tongue all season long, and you're out there just trying to mentally collect it. Put the red bar on the left side. That's a big thing for the teams, and one of the things that I've seen very successful teams do is they have a playbook, a choreography, a chant. They've got some little routines in there that says, even the silly things like, bot has gone out, red bar left. That doesn't mean anything to you and me, but to them that means that's a reminder to them that I got to get this red bar and move it to the left or whatever the case may be. So give them some little short 1 or 2 or 3 word sentences to say and remember and memorize, and use those every single practice.
But their team watching can fit that.
Good point. So you have 2 drivers here, but the other 8, or the maximum of the other 8, will be standing some number of steps backwards. They can tag in and tag out if they want to do that. That's fine. We've done that as well. But they're also great coaches in being. So they're in there going, don't forget the left rubber, or whatever the case may be. They need to be the eyes and ears, especially if there's something going on down here that's, maybe you have trained them so well that you send the robot out. Robot's doing autonomous stuff. So that means I can work on this stuff over here. And in the meantime, it's, trying to climb up the side. Your other team members from the back will be saying, rescue now, rescue now. So engage them. Make that whole team a part of the robot experience. At least in my opinion.
So as far as what they can bring to the table, can they have a meeting list, like a mission?
They can't have one piece of paper with any type of reminders or instructions on it. But they can't use that piece of paper for like an alignment jig or a measurement tool or in any way a mechanical device. It is truly just a set of instructions.
Is there a minimum amount of missions I need to do for the
Nope.
challenge? And do you get more points for a harder mission? Or
Great thing. So when they're choosing what missions they're going to try, once they kind of get 1 or 2 simple ones under the belt, you want them to go out there and evaluate that. Is how far is the mission away from base? How many points are you going to get to it? The challenges is all described here. How difficult is the mission? Because if you get an easy mission, it's worth a lot of points and it's close to base, yeah, that's the one you want to tackle first, right? But you're right. They are purposely going to be more points than more difficult or further away from base.
Are you confined to a particular Lego kit for your parts?
You are confined to some of the electrical items. You are confined. That was my exam. You are confined to one controller, be it an NXT controller, RCX or EV3, a certain number of motors, and a certain set of sensors. All of those are pictured and listed in the rule books. After that, any piece made by Lego, whether it be the Harry Potter Halloween stuff, Legos that you have in your box at home, the traditional type of Legos, which are like this, any Lego part manufactured by Lego is legal.
Can you swap out 2 different robots?
No, not within the same match, because you're only allowed 1 controller and sets of numbers. But you remember, you do have 3 matches or 3 rounds that you can go to. If you wanted to, you can have 1 complete robot for round 1, and then bring a completely separate robot for round 2. But in any one match, you're allowed those particular electrical items. One quick thing on cargo here, so let's use position here. We do have some cargo on board this time. No, let me reverse the, let's go back to our second mission where we're going to pull this and bring one back. So we're dragging it back to base. And right here, we've already discussed, we've already shown that the robot is in. Agree? In fact, it's even in right there. Any little bit of in is in. So I can grab the robot now without penalty and bring it into base.
So breaking plane.
Breaking the plane, absolutely. Touchdown, break the plane, doesn't matter what your knees are doing at that time.
Something like this.
Yeah,
Good point.
can you do that?
Good point, I'll get to that. But what I want to focus on here is while the robot is in, the cargo is not in. So you can touch the robot without penalty. You're going to lose the cargo. All right. So when you are bringing something back to base, you definitely want to have the robot in and the cargo in before now you can touch everything.
Some missions require cargo.
If it's going to say completely in, it will say completely in. Everywhere else it's going to say in. It also just needs to be in, so that is in, even though it's not touching. But it doesn't have to be touching base, it has to be in base, which again, breaking the plane of this thing. Last piece on that one is the base also has a 12-inch imaginary height to it, so whatever your starting robot is can't be more than 12 inches. Once you press go and it goes out there, it can grow to beyond 12 inches tall, but it can't be when it's ready to start. And the last point that you said, I love you'll have kids exactly like this. There is a rule that says you can't have a, do I have one? You can't have you can't have a thing that's its only purpose in life is to extend it into range. Now you can have things like this and they can be functional. And if they were to do stuff over here and activate this mission and then you fold it out, then yes, that part now counts. But if its only purpose in life is to stick out there and give you a 4-inch mark, no doubt. And there's a rule that's one of the things about it, and this is a little bit more generic, is when you're first starting and you don't have a robot built yet, build your, I call this the pretend robot, but make your real pretend robot. This is a great exercise for some kids who have some building experience, but don't have really any robotics experience. Kind of make something that at least rolls and maybe has a lever. It's about the same size as a regular robot. And now you can use it for planning missions and visualizing. Because the kids, especially younger kids, are going to have a harder time visualizing without you telling them, I want you to go do this, this, and this. They need something to kind of spark them up. So make you a little simple one like this and say, what if we drove down here and you break into that, and back up a little bit, and you turn, you can go through those types of leading questions, and then they can take it from there. All right. We'll wrap up real quickly with a couple of mission-specific ones because there are a little bit
You
weird
don't get
issues.
extra points for some supplies.
No. And if there's any times where you can score it this way and score it this way, you only get the larger ones. This year, most of them are very independent. If you'll hand me that little black piece right there, this one's a little bit different this year. So in base, one of the things you're going to start with when you arrive at the table is 12 pieces. You're going to have these 6 pieces, and then you're going to have an identical 6 pieces over here. Your team's challenge or job is to build something, and literally something. It can be in any shape, puzzle, or whatever, but it all needs to connect together with these 6 pieces. And then what they're going to do is they're going to put it in they'll probably have the black baskets here for you. They're going to build this contraption, put it in the black box, close the lid as best as it can, and then they're going to put this on the other table. Tournaments are played with 2 tables back to back. So normally that particular mission goes over both tables. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be building a model, a crazy random model for the other team. And they're going to be doing the same for you. So let's say that the other team has now put this on your table. It's smart. For the mission called reverse engineering, your task is to go navigate over there, drag that, bring, whether you drag, pick, or do whatever it's up to the team, bring that black basket back to here and open it up. And then with the remaining exact duplicate 6 pieces, your team builds the same thing that the other team did. So that one's a little bit unusual this year in that before you even start the match, your team needs to concoct a little contraption, put it in the black box, and then give it to the other side. No, that's before the thing. So before every 2.5-minute match, you're going to have at least a minute, usually 2 to 3 to 4. to come to the table, get square, set up all of your stuff, put things the way you like it, and a very, 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 very important aspect is to review the table. This model is actually particularly broken, and I'll use that as an example. Notice the points wrong with that. It's not supposed to be there. One, before the tournament ever begins, early in the morning, you adult coaches will have an opportunity to examine the tables. Be sure that everything's built right, and if something like that is not broken, because you wouldn't be able to activate. But even if you do that, as the day goes on, each and every team that visits the table, each and every time, part of that preparation before the 2.5 minute marker goes is to look over the table. Now, they can't touch anything, but they can definitely say, Mr. Referee, the leaf is missing from there, or all of those platforms are not sticking up, or whatever the initial setup information that's in the book, they can say, hey, something's not right, I'm finding one that's on the monitor this year. Oh, the green one. Let's say that was here. Sorry, that needs to be aligned to the monitor. Now, if you came up here and you said, you know what, we've always been practicing like this. That's not how the setup issues say. So you can't say, well, we like to have it like that. No, you can only ask the referee to bring it back to spec as according to the rules.
They wouldn't know if that arm was working.
Yes, and so things that have some activation, that's why we have the coaches meeting in the morning, is to go through some of the mechanics.
You mentioned about that example that the other team, but you need to quite understand whether two teams can.
Good point. One real quickly on the question about this one. Let's say that the last team that was before you generally broke it, and nobody noticed it, and your team goes up to do it, and it misbehaves. You're given benefit of the doubt on anything that misbehaves from the side of the table. Now, so the tournaments are two tables back to back, and there's a picture of it in the challenge book about how they go. So there's a mirror image on that side. But you're not necessarily competing against that team. It's not a head-to-head competition. They're doing their own thing, and they'll get a score. You're doing your own thing, and you'll get a score. Now, there are two places, though, where you have some interaction. And the two places would be that basket that we just talked about, where there's a little bit of, hey, we built something, can you copy it? And the other one is this center mission that straddles the table. Now, Scott has already acquiesced on the center mission this year, meaning that, because this is the one that has the string that goes along, you can actually activate that by pulling this red lever backwards. You're going to get points this year as long as you go up there and demonstrate the fact that you're just pulling on the lever. The mission, though, is not, or the model is actually not able to bring its smiley face over until your team does it and the other team does it. So in its original design, what was going to happen is neither team would get the points until both teams decided to pull the lever. But I think through experimentation or whatever review that he did, one, it's either too hard to do on a consistent basis, or he didn't feel that enough teams would be capable of navigating all the way down there. He didn't want to penalize anybody. So if you pull a red lever, even if the other team doesn't pull theirs, you're going to still get your 40 points. Other years it's been who can get to that middle section first and do something, or who can get to the middle section and do something last. So there's a little bit of, that's where the word cooperation comes from. Kind of cooperating, kind of competing, like in real life, Shell and Exxon are competitors, but you can bet they get together on a lot of topics.
The other team might decide not to.
Right. May not decide, may not be capable. And so I think that was part of it this year with 40 points on the line. That seemed to be a highly, who you got paired up with would be very, very dependent on your score, have a big impact on your score.
One last question. Philly's base runs amok and destroys a couple of teams. Are we responsible for setting those things?
No. So good point. Like in this particular case, if this thing came to rest, well, this one's a little bit different because you've actually broken the arm. But basically what the rules will say is loss and chaos. There's a rule out there. Anything the robot does out there stays. And if that makes it worse for you to try to progress to accomplish the next mission, too bad, so sad, right? So if you're bringing back, if you're bringing back this black basket, and you're bringing it back, and somehow you lose it, and it goes like this, that's where it stays. And if you were going to go on a new mission later on and go through there, you can either try to bulldoze through it or whatever, but it stays where it is. Now, if something accidentally happens, and this does happen from time to time, people will bump into the table, right? Bump into the table, and let's just say that falls. Let's say that loop falls out. If possible, the referee is going to try to reset the table back to the way it was in real time when somebody bumped the table. Oftentimes that's not possible because things are happening all over the place. And so what will happen is if your team was the one who bumped the table or a robot ran them up, then you're not going to get the benefit of that. But if it was the referee or even the other team over there, they did something crazy and something fell apart, then you will get the benefit of the doubt.
But will everything be set back before the next week?
Right, so the next group, the next 2.5 minute match, everything is completely reset, absolutely. One quick point on that is when the 2.5 minute buzzer goes, everything has to come to a stop. It's almost like the hands up kind of a deal. Because what's going to happen now is they're going to take out their handy dandy score sheet and judge, okay, is that activated? Is this blind mark on that? So while that's doing, even if the robot came to a stop out here, then that's where the robot stays until the referee completes their scorecard. Well, the people who are resetting the table will hold back until the ref gives the all clear. And when they get the score sheet, this is not an official score sheet, you'll get all the check marks on there. It will not be mathematically scored, right? So you will not have a number on it, but you will have yes, no. You do this, yes, you do this, no, you do that. The referee will put that out there, and then they will hand it to the team. One or both of your two team members need to put their John Hancock signature and acknowledge that, yes, I agree that that's what the table is. You may be up in the stands with the binocular going, but they're not getting the ball in the net or whatever. Too bad. It is the responsibility of those last two drivers to agree with and to acknowledge and sign that off. Now, if they have a question about it, they go, well, wait a minute, we thought the rule said this, this, and this. You can say, wait, no, that's not right. I thought Rule 27 said you could do this, but you could do that. And if the referee doesn't understand or agree or acquiesce to that, then you can go, I would also like to speak to the head ref. Now, if you're a 5th grader and you're looking up at the ref, he's got the big striped shirt on, and you're going, in your mind, you're going, you're wrong. And out your mouth, you're trying to be nice about that, saying, sir, I think you need to do this one differently. And then they tell you, no, you've already this tall, and now you just went down to this tall. And so their ability to ask for the head ref is very low. But I would say it's very, 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 very valuable. Even if they are still denied the points, that experience of standing up for yourself and saying, I believe this to be true, and I would like that somebody else to come give me a second opinion, is super. You might lose the rest of the whole day. You might have zeros and everything else. But that one kid is going to have that NFL experience. So anyway, I say all of that just to make a point of it. But you are allowed to ask for the head ref to come over, and Sammy or perhaps myself or others to come over there, and then again, we would all confirm. Oftentimes, if there's any way that your team is going to get the benefit of the doubt, you will. There's not a ref out there who's looking for.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. It's not over, but if anybody would like to talk about Junior First Lady League, we're going to be at that table in the back. And then you guys are welcome to continue on.
Okay, overtime!
Overtime. But I have one announcement. I understand that there is a grant for First Lady League, and it is on the firstintexas.org website. And it's an online registration for it, or you apply for it. There are no details about how much it is, or whether it's just registration or what, but it's still open. So, firstintexas.org. Everybody runs apply for it real quick. And if anybody hears about other grants or any kind of funding, let me know and we'll publicize it. Okay, back to your table discussion.
You can work it the entire time. Well, except for when the robots get away from something. But you can be working. You can still be working. If you got 2 kids and you had some people will bring a cart, like an AV cart, a TV tray, a little extra stuff. This kid is working on starting the robot. This kid can be doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Building the next piece. It does not have to close all the way. It says close as much as possible. So depending on the shape that they build, it probably won't close. Which is a great thing to think about. So if your strategy is to go pick this up and do a little loop thing, realize that these things might be up. That's part of the variability going to get this stuff. You don't know what that's going to Right, you build them all, and when you come to tournament, these are all provided for. Every once in a while, they'll ask for volunteers to bring their field kit or a practice table. So you have whoever's putting on the tournament will definitely provide all the tournament tables. Sometimes they ask for volunteers to bring practice tables. And in some cases, as a matter of fact, I would say in most cases, as long as the facility is large enough, you can bring your own field kit and a mat. And then in your pit area, usually out the gym, the cafeteria,
I was just saying about Eddie, I'm not sure where he is. He was here a second ago, but no.
He might have gone to the back.
The rest of the could be,
madhouse.
Misplaced my stuff. I'm in so many different places.
Right, so 225 basically gets you a team with a team number, gets you registered at FLL, which is then, in order to have an effective play, you're going to buy
Yes, FRC. Yes, and there's usually the Reliant.
Thank you. Now, most of the qualifiers will also
Because they work together. Oh, St. Agnes Angel.
Well, that's a good question. You could do the 220.
Yeah.
You could do 225 and 225. You may only have to ride one. The field is share. So that's why they do say so you don't have to have every team, but you actually have to have
Excuse me, everybody. I found Bill under one of the tables, under that table over there, under the chair. If anybody lost anybody, come see me over here.
20, 10, 5. Start. No,
Could you talk a little bit about the multiplier? And so you can limitation on how many times you can do it in a single outing.
And this one is sadly not the model is starts in that position. So every time you leave this, you're allowed to activate this basically, which is going to be 2 clicks or 180 degrees worth. Every time you click it, it obviously goes up. Mr. Mike. So if you went out there and you drove past it, you don't get one click, somehow you click another click. If you do click at a third click, or somehow you go on and click a whole bunch, you will undo that. So you only have 2 clicks per departure. As soon as you go back to base and do another restart, then you're allowed 2 more clicks.
It takes your total score and multiply it by whatever percentage.
Exactly. So I forget the exact scale, but I think the first one is 10%. Let's say you got 2 clicks, so that'd be 11%. Whatever points you got elsewhere, then you're going to add 11% of that. This is purposely designed to, somebody mentioned, Katie said, perfect 400 games. It used to be that the games were set at 400 points and there were teams who could go and accomplish every single one of them. This year in 2.5 minutes is completely impossible. Even if this was the only mission you did, you can't do that too many times. And so this becomes the ultimate tiebreaker. It is an interesting piece though that it's a multiplier this year, not just a fixed number.
Maximum possible point to get a robot.
I think I've seen 8 something like that. But again, we can see that this is simply impossible. There's no way that you can do all of this and it come out here enough times to work still. So 300 and 400 Right. At the end of the 2.5 minutes is over, the buzzer buzzes, the power minutes is going to preview. Now, one of the things that people have asked about in the past, because there are 3 robot rounds, right? They're not added to it. So it's not like you do a couple of missions in round 1, and then you do a few more missions in round 2, and you add those together. Each match, each of your 3 visits to the table, complete independent view. All right, so it's only what you can accomplish in 1 visit to the table. Right. As long as you provide, as long as it satisfies the rules and the conditions and conditions, that's all there. Now, where you do get points for that, where you get credit for that, is in the technical judgment session. You can say, hey, in my silly example. We could have gone out here and tried this move back, but we did. We actually invented some superhero crane that made some fantastical engineering. That's what goes on to show off. Yeah, you can do it. Now you can show off in a more elegant way or a silly way. Or just something that you can do. 1, 2 points. As long as it satisfies the rules of interference. Not penalty, but off the line. Give you 3 tries to get the last it comes in pieces, just like a box of Legos. All of this is in pieces. It's about 10 different bags. And that's actually, that's the great first meeting or two, is to give all the bags and the instructions to the kids, and let them kind of break up the groups. That's what you'll see. You'll start to see who's your people who follow instructions. Who are your people who are just thinkers and dreamers and don't care about the process? You'll get to witness all that during the process. So the very starting position of all of this would probably be this basket, and these 12 pieces all loosely placed in your base. And again, we have two piles of bricks. Your team is to come to the table before the game begins and build something out of these things. Whatever that is, put it together any place where it will snap together. Any place where it will snap together. And then they place it in the plastic, try to cover the lids as much as possible. And then they're going to put that on the other table. Okay? The other team is going to put theirs on your table. Now we're all, okay, is everybody ready to go? We're going to start the match. We start the match now, the 2.5 minutes. Clock is counting. If your robot wants to, the robot goes out and gets that flag and brings it back to base. Then they use these other 6 parts to copy what the other team does. The building of the copy has to happen in 2.5 minutes, but the preparation of building yours for the other team, that happens. Oh yeah. Well, here's the point. You can absolutely practice this. Now, what you can do is when your team comes to the table, they have their box of stuff, whatever's in their stuff. You can't bring one of these already made. You can't bring these pieces that are already on the table. You can't bring your own ball. So when you come to the table, you can't bring two things. Now it's confusing about, wait a minute, did you have that before the game started or after? So in this case, you wouldn't bring one of these pre-made anyway. Yeah. Oh yeah, these pieces are clearly 5-minute jobs. Yes, they can. They can. You can certainly get them started with some exercises, and this one will be a good example when it comes to it's probably only 3 blocks. Move forward, put over down, move back. Get them through the motions. It's best if you just let them, in other words, find a place at your tongue and then quiet them. That you don't say anything. What you are there though to do is to figure out, because especially younger kids, they know how to argue, but they don't know how to debate and define what's the pros and cons. Because then maybe this is my team. You have an idea you want to do it this way. She has an idea she wants to do it this way. And you as a coach, it's your job to figure out, okay, you guys work it out so that you can figure out the best solution. And they can vote, and they can write on the board. And I like this idea about hers, and she writes down, I like this idea about hers. You write down, I don't like this idea about hers. I don't like this. And then the team gets together and discusses that versus mine. Your idea is super. That's the job of the coach, is to facilitate that debate, not who's asking. Well, absolutely. That's an excellent technique. Especially when it comes to attachments. We did that a lot. Okay, fine. Now that we always do it on purpose, So like, you go up and build this version, maybe you build something like this, and then again, it's a team, we go down and which one is best, which one is success, so which one is easier, which one is more consistent. So like, or combine the best of both ideas. As a coach, one of the good things is to give them a list of adjectives about what makes a good robot. So if you're talking about building a robot, and they've got this one, and maybe they've got something like this started, they've got just silly examples. What makes a good robot? Is it reliable? Is it sturdy? Is it lightweight? Is it flexible? And flexible means that you can do different things with it. So your job as a coach is to give them those words, so that when they discuss the idea, they can measure that. Well, okay, mine's really sturdy, but it's super heavy. You can definitely pick out a mission. You kind of like you guys today. We talked about pick this up, stab it, drag on. You can definitely walk through one of those as a coach to try to give them the sense of how do I tackle it. If I can figure that out with this, I try to figure it out. Here's a hard one. Here's something similar. Here's something similar. And it's an iterative process. You won't go in there and go, okay, we're going to solve that issue today, and then we're done. You'll get some ideas, and I have 2 or 3 weeks of or you'll build it, get it perfectly going, and then some people will be at home going, oh, I just read the rules. I didn't mention it. So anybody that's here, as important as the challenge guide is, this is one time. You can print this one time, and be done. The challenge guide is published. But at any time, you can get the updates. The same place you got the challenge guide, you also need to look at the updates. Almost on a weekly basis. They take precedence. These will override or take precedence. So definitely look at that at the same time.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Are we done? I think so. Where is it?